Bismillah. Welcome back, Zoo Crew. So, today we're going to talk about three sides to every coin, right? And most people, they think a coin has two sides, however, there's always three sides. And I'm using this really as a metaphor for life, and I guess you could say what's going on in Iran, but really like life, right? So, when you live inside an authoritarian regime and you have to rely on the state run media, you're gonna be facing a little bit of propaganda, right? And this is valid in all authoritarian regimes, right? So, if you live outside of China and you Google Tiananmen Square, you will see the massacre that took place in China. However, if you're in China and you Google Tiananmen Square, you will not find any information about this, right? And similarly, outside of, like in America and in like the Western world, all of our media is run by a handful of people, and you could say it's all pretty much propaganda, right? This is why it's very important to learn how to think critically and ask questions, right? So, as all of this is unfolding, I'm doing my own research and coming to my own conclusions, right? So, again, this is also why it's very important to study history, right? Because, and like history from multiple sources, because really, like, history is written by the winners. So, whoever wins ends up writing the history, right? And then, again, you have to question what it is you're reading and does it actually make logical sense. So, when we're talking about Iran, the West will have you believe one thing, and the people in Iran are being made to believe another thing, right? And history doesn't lie. So, you can look into this when you had essentially in 1950s there was a coup to overthrow. So initially, like if you look at this on the surface level, they had an elected official, they had a prime minister who came in, and his whole goal was to nationalize their oil because they had a lot of oil. They have the third largest oil reserves in the world, right? So, like, we should pause here for a second. How is it that a country with the third largest oil reserves in the world and vast minerals and natural resources is economically poor, right? It's a lot of just kind of games that's going on. So, what happened is Britain was like, okay, well, we will partner with you and let's sell your oil, right? So these people came into Iran, they extracted the oil, and then would sell it and kept majority of the profits. So the Iranian people elected prime minister. I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name, but it's like Muscati or something like that, right? So you can Google this and you'll see. Then you have CIA and MI6 plan a coup to overthrow him for their own interests, right? So essentially, like, the world is playing chess right now. And it's the same thing, right? Whether that we're talking about Israel, we're talking about America, we're talking about China, we're talking about Russia, like all of these people are playing chess, right? And their board is Iran. And I guess this is another reason why I like anime, because you could say this is similar to what goes on in Naruto that leads to the formation of the Akatsuki, right? Where you have the land of rain right in the middle and being the war zone for other nations' wars, right? And Iran is in a very interesting place, geographically, location wise, you know? And so, anyways, these people elected this person. Britain and America overthrew him with like their own coup, and then they installed the Pahlavi dynasty. And the first generation was okay. The second generation really expanded, but this is like the thing, right? The people who lived in like the rural areas, the people who were like religious by nature, felt that they weren't being represented, and like the king's goal was to like educate people, right? So he did a lot for this country. Like everyone was getting taught how to read and write. People were taught how to speak English. Women got multiple rights, and like by all metrics, like he had modernized the world, or what he thought he was modernizing, but really you could say he was westernizing. And there was a big disconnect growing, right? And the people, and then again, like he had this like 2,500 year anniversary of Iranian culture, and a lot of the people who weren't close to the elites felt that this is not right. Like we have people who are starving, and you're spending all of this money to throw like a very lavish party, right? And then again, like the religious people of the country, because like Islam had a pretty strong hold over this country, felt their values weren't being represented, right? And then this is where you have the revolution of 1979, where Khomeini came into power, right? And again, like it's because whoever is the most organized during revolution will be the person to come into power, right? And the people helped him come into power because they wanted freedom and sovereignty, right? So they thought like, okay, this person will help us get to what we want, right? And like one thing led to another, and this is like the interesting thing, because initially, like when like I researched this, I came across like, oh, they had like an elected leader, but how could they have had an elected leader if there was a king in place, right? And then because this guy was overthrown by the next king's family, he was anti this king. So he was very much involved in helping Khomeini, the person who took over in the 1979 revolution, right? And he was part of the Qajar dynasty. So this is what I mean. There's always so much more to the story, and like there's always three sides to the story, right? Because again, now people are like, okay, we'll bring back the king, bring back the Shah, long live the king, right? And from the outside, it looks like this is going to be just another puppet government put there by America for whatever interest they have in the country and whatever they can gain, right? And then at the same time, now you have China saying, okay, we stand with Iran, like we don't want you guys to like interfere in whatever is going there, right? For their own interests. And the thing is, like the people of Iran want to have a leader they choose, right? So essentially this person is supposed to come in as like an interim leader, help them set up democracy, and help them go through the process of electing somebody they want to have lead them, right? And of course, like this is not being shared online, right? The news media is not talking about any of this. And I believe it's all by design, because as much as they like bash this country, they can't openly talk positively about this country, right? And regular media, it's all just spin. So like they just say something and spin it into something else, right? So it's never really the full truth or like the whole truth or any of the truth sometimes, you know? And this is again a reason why like they're having internet blackouts in this country, right? Because they don't want the people in the country actually sharing what's going on. And it's a form of control. And really, like, if they are massacring people, they don't want the outside world to know what's going on, whether they're doing it for like whatever their reasons are. Like, there's no real reason for them to be committing such atrocities and like genocide, you could say, right? So I think it's very important for people to go and study the history of this country, regardless of if you are Persian or know anyone who's Persian/Iranian. And then even like people are like, oh yeah, like it should be called Persia, but like Iran was like its name, where it stands for land of the Aryans, right? And it includes many other cultures like Kurdish people, Arabs, and then you have the Persians, etc., right? So it's not just like fair to put a blanket statement. And I guess my whole fear in all of this is that regardless of what side of the equation you're on, you have to question the information you're being given. and you have to do your own research, and you have to think critically, right? So even like if you're looking at the history, you have to see like who's coming up with this history, right? And like it's a very scary time, I guess you could say, we're living through, and it's also both scary and interesting because we are literally living through like history in the making, right? And as much as these like revolutions have happened in the past, there's a few key differences in what's going on now and what's happened in the past, right? And I think it comes down to like fear, where fear was being used to control people, but now people have kind of broken out of that and they don't have any reason to continue fearing. And people are just kind of fed up, you know, with being kept down and like being oppressed. And when you come from such like a vibrant culture and like civilization that helped put in place modern governance, art, science, philosophy, like medicine, etc., like it's very hard to be told from the outside world, oh yeah, you people can't like rule yourselves. But then again, you also have to like consider this, right? So they can't trust their own government, and they can't really trust outside governments either. And like there's so many reasons. So like right now, all of this you could say comes down to inflation. So it's like, and this is something that can happen in any single country, right? Because of the way like we have our banking system set up. So it's not even like, oh, well, I don't live in Iran. I don't know anyone who lives in Iran, so I don't need to study this. It's like, well, no, you should study this either way, because what's happening there could very easily happen in your country, right? It's a very slippery slope to go from democracy to total dictatorship, right? And in like history, you can see at the end of democracy, then you have like an emperor come and take over, right? This happened in ancient Rome, ancient Greece, and it very well could happen in Canada and America, etc., right? So, yeah, it's a very interesting situation. I guess I don't even know like if interesting is the right word. It's just a very, yeah, it's a weird situation. There's a lot to unpack, and the more I kind of learn about all of this, the more I realize like, oh wait, there's more to the story, right? So there's always more to the story. There's always three sides to this coin. And you could say there's the side that the left talks about, there's the side the right talks about, and then like the thin side, like the side that goes around the coin, that's like the truth. That's the side that that's your conclusions you come to, right? So do your own homework, do your own research, learn how to think critically, ask questions, and yeah, I mean, I guess we'll end this with that, like, support people who stand up for freedom, support people who spread the truth. And when it takes a lot of courage to do what these people are doing, right? To go and confront the government knowing that when they speak their truth, they will die, they will be killed. And they're still willing to like speak up and like stand up for themselves, you know? And really like the only solution here is for the internal military and the police to turn on the government. So until like the military doesn't join the side of the people, there's gonna keep having issues and chaos, right? Because the real power of any government is their military. So if the military turns on the government because they decide, hey, we didn't sign up to like massacre our own people, that's when things will change, right? And again, you can see this throughout like different animes as well, right? Go and watch Attack on Titan. Like there's so many, and like there's people think like anime is like a cartoon and it's for children, but like really there's so many lessons about history, about like genocide, about authoritarian regimes, philosophy, etc., to be found here. And like in most cases they can tell a story much better than some form of like live action, because it's like a form of media, right? And again, this is another reason why in Iran like rap is illegal, and like they go after the free thinkers and the artists first, because art can bypass thought, right? Good art is supposed to trigger emotion, and then same thing, like they can pass on their ideologies in a very like unique way, right? So this is why they try and shut down the artists first, and like why they don't want certain kinds of art to exist, because then when people start questioning the system, you have people waking up and being like, oh wait, like this is not right, I don't agree with this, and then that's what leads to a revolution, right? So like it's pretty crazy to be watching all of this unfold, and really part of me is like, oh, I should just like go there and watch this happen, and like just witness all of this unfold, you know. And I guess that's like my inner kind of quest for the truth and freedom, because is that like the more I research what's going on in this country, the more I'm like, damn, I kind of lived through something similar, like in terms of like my whole dynamic with my family, you know. So yeah, it's a crazy world, guys. Anyways, that's it for today. Peace out, Zoo Crew.